Cow. She's got some lungs today. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to, I guess we're the 1st of July. Man, July already. First on the list, and I see David, you're on there. You want to go over this memorandum MOU with Pierce and SHS?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. David Berger from the prosecutor's office. So you might remember it was about a year ago, the county joined a lawsuit with a bunch of other different counties against the state Department of Social Health Services. And the gist of it is that in criminal proceedings, if a defendant is not competent to stand the charges against them, they have a process to determine competency. And if the criminal case is ultimately dismissed because they can't understand the case against them or participate in their defense, what happens is the case gets dismissed and then it gets referred to the state DSHS for them to review the person and see, okay, they can't stand the criminal proceedings against them. Can we commit them civilly for like involuntary commitment at a hospital for treatment because they're seriously mentally ill? So state law says that Department of Social Health Services has to admit them to evaluate them and see if they're, needing further commitment. And DSHS was basically refusing to do it. And they were also, whenever they release someone back into the community, they're obligated to notify law enforcement along with a few others, and they weren't doing that either. And I believe it was funding issues, but I'm not sure what the exact motive behind it was, but they were sort of trying to push their obligations off from themselves onto the counties, and the counties pushed back hard. And there was a large coalition of like 28 or 29 counties. Cowlitz was one of them. We agreed to join the litigation. The state didn't really have strong arguments. They tried to remove to federal court. The counties got it back remanded to state court. Counties did a good job litigating. We had it litigated through Pacifica Law Firm. Ultimately, the state has basically conceded that they were wrong. They've agreed to enter into a settlement agreement to start following the law. And that is reflected in the memorandum of understanding that I forwarded to you. And so in that MOU, the state agrees that it will accept these civil commitment patients and notify law enforcement in compliance with state law. So this is a win for counties. And essentially, every county that joined the litigation needs to sign off on this memorandum of understanding because it's like a settlement agreement between the governing bodies of the state and the counties. So that's what's in front of you today.
Say, David, I'm curious about one thing. The way you explained it, going back before this change of application, I guess, of the law. If someone appeared before the courts after committing a Class A of some kind, and it was decided they couldn't be they weren't competent, they were let go.
I think probably a better characterization of it was that DSHS was selectively refusing to admit certain patients. I'm not sure what criteria they were relying on. It could be that if it was like someone was accused of murder or rape in the first degree, like very serious charges, they were admitting those patients. But I know it was enough of a problem to cause concern among our own criminal division. So I'm not sure which patients they were selectively refusing to admit, but there were some people that, yeah, if you're charged with a crime, you don't understand what the charges are against you and you can't participate in your defense, the only mechanism for that is to have it be referred for a civil commitment. And if the state doesn't agree to do it, then yeah, you're out on the street.
You got it. Okay. In Cowlitz County, do you have any hints or idea of if that has impacted us?
I'm not aware of like specific cases. I think you'd probably, I just know it was a general concern of our criminal division, and the ultimate concern is you'd see it in a headline reflected of, someone goes out and kills someone.
Yeah.
Thankfully that didn't happen, but there are instances where that has happened across the country where someone's mentally ill, they walk and then they go and kill someone.
Was it Nietzsche that said the insanity in the individual is fairly rare, but in a group it's quite common?
I'm not sure. Is that a rhetorical question?
It's sort of it strikes me as very difficult for anybody to decide whether they're competent or not. There's some very clear instances, but they're way over on the side of the curve. And then for the bulk in the middle, it just becomes convenient to play the game. Anyhow, just my pessimistic, cynical view of justice is hard enough without nonsense.
I think there's a lot of game playing, so I hear you.
So David, are you asking us to authorize Rick to sign off like we've done on the other MOUs this
Yeah.
morning? Or this isn't really subject to full public review on a Tuesday meeting?
Yeah, sorry, I should have been more clear. Yeah, I am asking for the board to approve Chairman Dahl to sign. I believe what is the process is going to be that once all the counties are going to go in front of their boards to ask for their chairman to sign, to be authorized to sign. Once the Pacifica law firm that's representing the counties primarily gets word that we're all good to go, they're going to notify the state, and then the state is going to sign and then send via DocuSign the MOU to Rick for him to be able to sign. So yeah, we're just seeking the authorization we're asking the board to approve Chairman Dahl to sign.
I have no objection going forward with agreement.
Yeah.
It could be a little bit before we see it. I'll have to write it down so I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
and
is an interesting point.
Yeah.
I can ask to get a rough timeline of when they're going to send it, so you can look for it in your inbox. Yeah.
That's fine, David.
Well,
I get some things from the state that don't go through Gina, they come direct, and I never know what we've talked about and what we haven't at times.
Understood.
As long as it's taken care of in the next 2 years, I don't think we have a problem.
Yeah.
Now, if it was either one of us, it'd be a different question.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon.
Okay.
So,
Thanks.
Mr. Weber, are you suggesting that all problems from now on for you and me are just a temporary problem?
You guys are a temporary problem, that's for sure.
Touche.
Thanks, David.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Looks like we got risk management. You guys haven't been busy, right?
Good morning, Kathy Baxter, Finance Director. I'll do the financial report first for risk management. And whoops, I want to hand something out. Sorry. Okay, our first financial that we'll do, I think they have 3 different financials for risk management. The first one is risk management. This is the one where we have our assessment, and it covers our property as well as our other risk. Revenue is billed in January. So therefore, you'll see that our goods and services, our revenue comes in all in January. So year to date, we have very little that we still have to collect. That's from our departments. And then we also have miscellaneous, which is primarily investment income. So we're well above a trend if you were using a normal 12-month. And that's only because we bill everything in January.
Kathy, can you explain how those assessments are determined?
The assessments for the departments.
Mhm.
So the assessments for the departments are actually based upon labor hours. Property is based upon, and we also have a separate property assessment billing we receive from the risk pool. So the bulk of that number is based upon property. It's based upon regular claims, tort claims, litigation. And so that assessment is based upon, we bill the departments based upon labor hours, their proportionate percentage of labor hours.
And compared to the physical plant, that's the largest number, right?
Right. So no, so actually the billing assessment we receive from the risk pool is a smaller amount for property coverage. And that is billed back to the departments based upon the value of the facilities, the majority facilities. So most of it's going to our facilities department as far as the billing.
Do we, that seems to me to be an awkward thing to have to do. I just added an office. Wouldn't it be simpler would it be acceptable to just ignore that part and just do our allocation based on the man hours?
We could do that, but we actually receive a separate billing for the property portion.
Right, that comes to you, but to the departments, it's.
Well, very few departments are actually billed for the property assessment. It's primarily it's almost all allocated to facilities. And then we break it down internally for bars, for expenditure purposes, to the right building, jail, et cetera. And it's mostly only those buildings that we actually in turn have another cost allocation for.
See, I look at that a little bit in the sense of a very practical view. Does it really matter? So if I'm a department head and I want to go and get my own building and my own empire, I'm assuming the board would stop that. But this complication doesn't improve the product. That is to say, all this that doesn't change our exterior to WCRP, right?
Right.
And so I'm thinking, why not just ignore all that complication?
Yeah, I think it's because of the fact that some of those buildings, like the jail, we do want an accurate expenditure for the jail, because we turn around and bill for the jail daily inmate rate. So if I allocate it based upon hours, roads would get more of the building property assessment.
That's why I'm not the finance or accountant individual, because to me, that's just the 10% that takes 80% of the labor.
Yeah. Well, the good news is we only do it once a year.
Yeah, but at that time, you've integrated everything along the year and all that. Oh.
Well, in addition to the jail contract as a separate revenue source, we also have to make sure that the dollars spent in the road fund from the property tax, the road property tax, have to be used just for road-related issues.
Right.
And so that's the only way we can do it, by this kind of separate billing of the departments, and
and
that's
to
a
make
huge,
sure we
that's a
don't
huge revenue
overbill.
source. If we don't do that, then it comes 100% out of the general fund, which I suppose we have the discretion to do that.
But that's not what I'm suggesting, is it?
If you don't do
I'm
The
suggesting
product-
of the allocation, make it all the labor hours and ignore the facilities, because that's just a complicated assessment, and it's a minor part anyhow.
Well, I'm also assuming that through the risk pool, we have access to other kinds of insurance policies that reduces the risk. Once we reach our certain limit, then there's so we have to handle that risk pool a little bit differently.
I don't think that
But
follows. I mean, we need to know what the value of our of our buildings and infrastructure, but whether we allocate $1 to the jail and a dollar to the auditor doesn't really change
Yeah.
anything, I don't think.
On the property side, there's only about 6 different areas we allocate based upon facilities.
Yeah.
And it's only, you've got jail, you've got administration building, you've got some other ones, but it's the total for the assessment that we received from the risk pool on property only last year was $620,000.
So let me ask it this other way. Presenting, is there anything the board can do with that number? So if you're collecting data, presenting it to us, it's got to be traceable to something that we can do or undo. And I don't think that applies here.
Yeah, it doesn't apply on the property. We're allocating that out based upon, and I believe it's based upon either the cost of the buildings or what we've determined is, because we do periodically we do an assessment, a fair, basically a market value assessment of our property for insurance again. And
Right, we
so,
really must do that for insurance. I
Yes.
understand that part.
Yes.
The allocations are like, we really,
Yeah.
it isn't a tool to do anything.
yeah, and the allocation is based upon that value. Okay.
That was a heck of a first slide.
I know, sorry. So
Slide 2.
Slide 2, the expenses. So for risk management, most of the expenses for the year is related to what we pay the risk pool, which that's under services. And then we do transfer some funds out to our liability claims account. And that's already been done. And so we have just we have personnel, and we actually are on track there based upon the budget. Current year actuals are on track. And then, of course, our services, because we have to pay for that assessment once a year. We're well above what our target is for that, but that's timing difference. And really, there's isn't anything other than from comparing this year to last year. Our personnel expenses are larger because last year we only had 1 position. This year we have 2 positions. And that's it on the expenses.
Yeah. It may not be a fair question. I typically when I look at some things where there's been a significant change, like between the prior year actuals, and I think even before that, I'm not sure the numbers. I don't recall them that well. it means that some work or something that we're doing today wasn't done before. And what is the consequence of not having done that before?
Well, I can speak to that. We were without a risk manager for quite a while. And so we're way behind on a lot of things that we want to, or that we want to have done so that we have proper risks and securities in place. And with the addition of myself and Scott, that makes up a big chunk of that budget.
Yeah, I understand that, but I've got here the Washington Administrative Code, little snippets of some things that have been discussed. And if we followed everything on the administrative codes, we would drown. If we, that doesn't mean we go against everything. It means some things we just don't do. And the same thing applies in, like I get all these incessant invitations to classes. And I'm like, really? Are we? And so my question is still, did we suffer consequences? And now I'd expect the proper defense would be, well, we got a notification from the risk pool that said, you either do this or we're going to bounce you out of the risk pool, in which case I'd expect you'd come to us and say, you have a choice. We can go try and find insurance elsewhere, or you can accede to the rules of the risk pool. I think for me, that just needs clarification.
Well, I know that in the past, I know right now we're behind and we have a risk presentation to show you, but for example, we're behind on the evacuation maps, getting those updated. That's something that we weren't able to get done. We've got a plan in place to get that done. We were behind on our AEDs. So we've done a survey. We're going to try to get that rectified, make sure that we have AEDs in the proper areas. Things like that we were behind on. Our record destruction, we were behind on due to lack of personnel. So those are just some they're minor things that we've been behind because of lack of enough personnel in the risk management area.
Didn't we also fall behind on our safety training and recording the number of people that were certified or had taken the various training courses?
Yes.
And although they are onerous, those WACs do require certain level of safety competence for all of our employees.
Right.
And
Safety committees is one of the things that we're behind on, making sure that they're all back in place. For example, a safety committee for this building, we need to get that set up. And so we're on task to do that. And there's also a requirement for your accident prevention accident prevention program, and that needs to be updated. And so we now have people in place that can help us get that done.
Yeah. And I recall one, and I don't know if it fits into what Commissioner Mortensen is asking, but we fell behind. We had to take like a $800,000 hit.
Yeah, so we
I don't know if that was part of the insurance or what we got behind on.
Well, we fell behind on having somebody monitor the financial accounts for risk management, and that was in our liability claims and also in our workers' comp claim and our risk management claims. So
The biggest hit we've taken is from the deaths in the jail.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's probably the jail is handling that as best as they can, I suppose.
Yeah. So it's one of the high risk areas. Any other questions on expenses? So the next item is industrial. It's called industrial accident. And this is where your workers' comp program is administered out of this fund. This fund, basically, we bill the departments. Again, that's based upon man hours, labor hours is how we come up with that billing. We bill at the beginning of the year, so we have all of our revenue and the goods and services already billed. We've actually billed a little less this year than we did last year. But each year we base that upon where we think our actual workers' comp active claims levels will be. And so we were kind of optimistic on that one. So anyway, and then miscellaneous is just investment income. And we're almost approaching all of the budget for the year there. So we were conservative on what we budgeted. Any questions on the revenue for workers'
So
comp?
that's another January billing for the departments?
Yes. Mhm. And it's also partly why all the departments that their services expenditures doesn't follow a traditional equal 12 months. Most of our departments receive their bill in January and they pay their bill in January. On the expenditure side here, we only have services. This comprises our actual policy for an excess workers' comp. We're self-insured, so we have an excess workers' comp policy we pay. We pay that once a year. And then we also have claims, active claims that we pay. This year, active claims have exceeded prior year at the same time period. So we're ahead of last year's claims. You'll see that last year, year to date, at this point in time, was $125,000. And this year, we're at $329,000. So we actually have a slide to go over workers' comp in our presentation today, showing you how many more claims. And so we're on trend to exceed the number of claims this year versus last year. So this expenditures are tracking with that data point. But as far as budget, our target for budget is 317,000 based upon year to date, and we're at 329,000. So we're not far off from what we budgeted. Last year, we actually had a lower amount of claims expenditures for the year.
Do you try to hit the number as closely, or do you figure 5%, 10% is what you?
So when we look at the claims, when we budgeted, we actually budgeted based upon looking at the last 3 to 5 years. And so,
You just take the average of the.
right, the average.
You don't stick in a little clause in there or something. I mean, because that would assume that we're acting kind of like an insurance company, and they don't like to do payouts that are 99.9%. Okay.
Yeah, and you could certainly have some spike years, couldn't you? Do we take any input from risk pool on this, or if they're?
No,
they
workers'
come and
comp is not, yeah,
say,
it's,
seeing big increase here, do we do anything with that?
no, workers' comp doesn't administer anything related to our workers' comp.
Okay,
Risk pool doesn't have anything related to workers' comp.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. More appropriately stated
Yeah.
by Shelley.
So then at the, like the prior year, the payout was 63.2%. And that means that the ending fund balance just grew.
Yes, yeah. Prior year, we budgeted
Yeah.
for our claims to be in the neighborhood of 200,000 to 300,000, and they were less. So that's why your prior year expenditures were only 53% in total of what we budgeted.
And the ending fund balance, Aaron, is just a reserve that you have coming into the next year. And sometimes you estimate that you're going to take out a little bit from the reserve. So
Yeah,
have
I
you got
try.
a target on the
Yeah, I
reserve?
try not to take anything from the reserve when I'm doing the budget.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
so, and that way, if we do have a spike, we have that reserve to draw on.
How large is that reserve now?
I don't know the number. I think it's about $300,000 right
I
now.
remember.
So it's about 1 year's worth of what we estimate claims typically.
Seems like a good number to me.
Okay, next, the last one that we'll go over is liability claims. And liability claims is where we pay out for torts and other litigation matters. The risk pool sends us a bill every month. And so the only revenue source we have on this is a transfer from our risk management fund. And that was $100,000. We are looking at increasing that. It's part of our budget amendment that we're presenting in public hearing tomorrow. We've had some larger claims, and so we have some, we need to transfer more money in to cover those, and we also are receiving payments from the risk pool to cover some of those claims as well. So that's why miscellaneous for this year looks off compared to last year, because we have a claim where we're getting revenues in for the motor pool fire.
Oh, yeah. So this whole part is really, really driven by risk pool, what they're paying and what they're given.
Right, right. So then when you see the expenses, you'll see that we've incurred 100,000 already year to date for expenses. And so we're running above target. And that was primarily due to that one item related to payment for the motor pool fire. So we've increased the budget, but our expenses are up over.
So we pay an annual fee to the risk pool. And that comes out of risk management.
Risk management, that's the assessment.
That's basically an insurance premium. And
Right.
it's a tool that you use to pay off the tort claims that we get from
Right. And we have,
employees and anybody who has a
right,
claim against the. So the homeowner whose car is damaged by chip sealing or paint or, those kinds of claims we review, and some of them are
approved and
if
some are
there's found
denied.
that there's some kind of intentional negligence, then we pay a claim. Yeah, okay. And how much do we pay to the risk pool? What?
For
That
general.
annual premium.
Oh, I have it right here. We're going to show it to you in
Well,
the,
she's stealing all my thunder.
I know, I'm good with that. I know, we're going to show it to you in our presentation in a minute. But for the liability portion, our assessment is $1.7 million.
And that's not paid in January.
No, it's not paid in January. That's interesting because that we always paid in October, and they kind of split the bill up for us. So it's not such a large cash flow issue. But they're looking to change their accounting periods because their year was October 1 to September 30th. They're going to be changing it to be aligned with all the counties, which is January 1. So in the future, we will get a bill from them in January. Right now, we get it in October.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Unless you have any more questions for the financial part. Okay, Shelley's going to go over some.
Shelley Pierce, Risk Manager. Good morning. So last month, we spoke on workers' compensation, and you guys had asked some detailed questions on what is really pending versus open. So I hopefully clearly defined that. Pending, oh, wait. Oh, sorry. Okay. So what is the difference between a pending claim and an open claim? So a pending claim is a claim is still waiting for a decision or further information. And I'll wait for, there we go. Or additional documentation and evaluation may need to be completed or processed, or benefits can be, before benefits can be dispersed. The claim is still under review or in the process of providing necessary benefits or services and/or services. If it's an open claim, the claim is actively being managed and the worker is receiving ongoing benefits or medical treatment. So that really defines pending versus open, because I know there was a question about that from the board. Any questions before we move on? Okay. So let's look at the data, the numbers. For in June, we had 1 closed claim and 5 new claims for workers' compensation. In 2024, total claims were at 16. We have 4 closed, 3 denied, 4 open, and 5 still pending. Any questions before we move on?
Excuse me. Maybe you'll tackle this later. So if so, I'm always curious about what is the denied, what are the characteristics of a denied claim?
It could be that, that's a great Scott question. Yeah, let's bring Scott up. He works most of on. Okay, perfect.
Scott Killian, Risk Management. So a denied claim can be for multiple reasons. Sometimes they're denied because of the location. Workers' comp doesn't usually cover slips and falls in the parking lot. So that's just an example. Or statute of limitations is another one. So if someone is claiming a hearing loss claim and they hadn't worked for the county for several years, 7 years, then that could be a reason for denial. It all just depends, and it's case by case.
In these 3 cases, in which of the categories do they fall?
From what I can recall for these 3 denied claims was, one of them was a statute of limitations for hearing loss. Actually, both of those reasons were one of those claims, and I can't remember what the third one is.
So people that have used to be employees more than 7 years ago are coming to you for a claim?
Yep. Yeah, more so this year than previously.
The claim is usually I was damaged on the job.
Hearing loss is the common one.
Huh?
Yeah. Hearing, yeah, exactly. Hearing loss is the one that keeps popping up for previous employees. And right now, I believe we have 2 that are open pending at this moment and 2 that are open for hearing loss.
So those are ones you looked at and said, yes, we understand the claim, we agree with it, and we're going to pay on that.
Most of the determination comes from Eberly Vivian, if not all of it.
the determination for the claim comes from Eberly Vivian. So if they,
From
Comes
what?
from where?
Eberly Vivian is our third party.
So they're our risk pool. Sort of.
They're, I guess that would be, yeah.
They
sort of.
analyze the.
They do a lot of the cost analysis. They do the financial reserve studies for each claim. They handle each claim cost.
So all of these claims, in addition to the risk pool, which doesn't really apply here, we've got a group of people that are under contract and they assess.
Yeah,
issues.
they're under contract.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And we work with them to supply them the information that they need. If there's something that we have that they need to, manage the case. They help us manage each and every case.
And they determine, we don't determine whether or not it's approved or declined. Everly Vivian does. Ready to move on?
Just a little bit off, but last Thursday, Scott was over there. I went to the safety meeting for the shop just to learn. This is pretty extensive what they go through. I mean, from training on how to hook up a trailer. I mean, it's from basics to the other. I know we go through a lot of work to try and keep everybody safe. There's so many things. I don't know how you keep track of everything, actually.
Which meeting was this?
Safety meeting the shop has.
Oh, the shop, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that for me is really clearly understandable.
Yeah.
Lots of people tend to, well, I did that with my 1,000-pound trailer and now he's dealing with a 50,000-pound trailer. Same stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. We'll move on to workers' compensation data on the next slide. This goes over the total paid per claim by year of loss starting in 2018. This graph goes over all of the financial changes, the ebbs and flows that we've seen. So if you look at the cumulative paid in May, cumulative paid in June, and then total claims in June versus total claims in May. So if you look at 2024, cumulative paid in May, we're at $31,830. Cumulative paid in June, $41,675. And that just shows the total number of 16 and claims in May were 11.
So just to be sure I understand this, the difference between May and June is an additional.
About 24,000.
And so the June number is cumulative.
Correct.
And the 16 is new claims in June.
Just total claims year over year.
Between June and May and June, we had 4 new claims. Actually, it's
Right.
5 new claims, but so May we had 11 that we had reported last month, and this month we're reporting 16.
So last year at this time, we had just talking about June, we had 19 for about 71,000.
Mhm.
And this year we have 16 for about 42,000.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as I said, we're only through May. So our number, you see 16 compared to our trend, we're usually in the 20s, 19, 23, something like that. So we're well above a trend line as of May, having 16 claims that we're managing.
Are the payments lump sum payments, or are we paying out every month? All of the
Yeah.
above?
Scott reviews those claims and I'll let him answer that.
Yeah, it kind of just depends on the claim. So last month we had, well, $24,000 in was what we had paid previous or current to the previous month total. And all of that is coming through the workers' compensation. So each claim's a little different. Average is between $7,000 and $10,000 per claim.
So one thing we may have, like if we extended out into the future, where I should hit a baseline, which is the number of dollars we have obligated for specific payments to specific people. Okay. And that number is roughly, without any new claims at all next year, what will we be paying out every month?
Are you speaking what we pay to, I believe, Vivian, every month?
Two claimants.
Two claimants.
Yeah. So I made a claim, I was successful, and I'm getting $1,000 a month. How many $1,000 a month are we obligated over the next few months, if nothing else changes?
So,
Yeah,
It's gonna vary.
yeah, it's really hard to tell. It's,
but based upon 16 claims, if it's $7,000 to $10,000 on average per claim that we've historically been paying, that comes out to about 112,000 versus, or as much as 160,000.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
I
What
think
is
where
the,
we're going, we're not talking about the lump sums. We're talking about
Per person claim?
the
Yeah.
spread out payments. And I don't know how many claims do that. You say, okay, we awarded you 24,000, you're gonna get it 2,000 every month. I think that's what we're asking. Versus we awarded you 24,000, we're gonna give you a check right today.
okay. So if, let's say, let's give an example, if somebody gets injured through workers' comp and they have, they're not able to work, and we have to pay that. We have to pay an LNI supplemental. So that's factored, the way we pay that, it's factored by its wages and how much they've worked.
Yeah,
and
that's a
other-
level of detail I'm not asking. I'm assuming, I'm taking that for granted.
Mhm.
And there are payments out there obligated for the next month and the month thereafter. And I'm simply asking, what is the sum total of those obligations, assuming you do not incur any new obligations?
So you're speaking more about reserve.
I think our next slide helps explain that. So if we could jump to the next slide, because it actually has outstanding, what Everly Vivian is estimating is outstanding for claims that we currently have on the books.
It's $152,412.42 for 2024. And then our total paid is at $41,675.
So the difference is what you project for the remainder of the year, but that includes a statistical estimate of new.
No,
No.
it doesn't include a statistical estimate of new claims, no. That's just the claims that we currently have. That's what they're estimating is our obligation.
Okay,
For
that
those
very
claims.
same thought for 2025 and 2026.
We could
you like a-
do a analysis on trend
3-year average.
for average for our previous history for the next years.
No, I'm looking for
Yeah.
actuals.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to pay out so many dollars next October. And the October thereafter, it's already cooked in the books that we have to pay
Yeah.
out to individual X.
And I believe that's what this 194, this 152 outstanding, and they're not projecting it by, they're saying for the
That's-
claims you currently have,
Actuals.
Right.
that's
and
what
then
you're going to pay. You may pay some of that this year. You may pay some of it next year.
So
If
you-
I
you
understand
look
your
at
question, you want to know
2023
what we're paying out each month or projected.
I want to know what we're actually obligated to pay over the next 24 months or even, there may be
Yeah.
some where you're going to pay for a lifetime. So I'd want to see something that cuts off at the end of 4 years from now, say, and says, and we've got this going.
We can ask our third-party vendor, Everly Vivian, to get us that data, and then we can share that at the next, in July, or in, gosh, we're already in July. In August, we'll be sharing that in August.
So in 2023, you show $150,000 in outstanding claims. Is that carried over into 2024?
Yes,
Yes.
that's showing you based upon claim year, what they're projecting is our obligation. And that's probably going to be paid in 2024 because we were already closed for 2023.
And what we're projecting, that comes from our third party?
Yes, comes from our
So
third party.
they know what their obligations are on a monthly basis to existing stuff, so they should be able to provide that data pretty easy.
Right.
Yeah.
Does have you discovered in perusing the records how we handled the 2019 overrun? Because that's far beyond our ability. I mean, it's so much higher than regular.
Yeah. Previously, we had reported that most of that year was through just one incident. This was the death of an officer. It was about 86% of that year was paid to that. And we just closed out one of those claims just recently, but we're still paying a little bit from the 2020 claim that was also involved with that. So from going through the data, there was, it would be like a typical year, except it was a little high. It was 29 claims, so 3 of those were pretty high, and the rest were actually also higher than usual. And I believe the most for that year was the sheriff's department.
Thank you.
So the thing that's a little concerning here is that each year we're building more claims upon this subsequent years, the previous years. And that means I expect to see basically what I see between 22, 23, and 24, a line climbing.
Mhm.
And at some point, climbs get really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is right now.
Well, a direct correlation to that would be the safety programs put in that time. So 2019 had higher incidences than any other previous year, and 2020 had a fairly low year. So you have to look at what programs were implemented in 2019, what programs are implemented in 2020.
You're
As
a
far
lot
as
more
safety.
optimistic than I am. I mean, assuming the correlations, I've looked at a lot of stuff. Anyhow,
Yeah.
I'm good.
I think
Ready?
what we're saying here is the reoccurring claims that keep coming year after year, that trend line's gonna, if it follows this, it's gonna keep growing with stuff that we already obligated to that keeps getting added. And I don't know that it's a lot you guys can do about it. I mean, it might be some of the nature of the stuff, but it's just one the things
Hopefully
you
our
see.
Tuesday training is helping to reduce some of that, we hope, knock on wood.
Yeah.
Still on workers' compensation, on the next slide, we have a total of 16 claims for 2024. And that just shows the majority in Public Works and other, Sheriff's Department, Superior Court, clerks, coroner, and juvenile detention. Any questions on those? Okay. Moving over to,
When you say public works, you mean the different departments under public services?
yeah,
Okay, so that's really public services.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on that pie chart, is there anything we should be thinking about based on the data there, that is we, the board?
we were just talking about that this morning, you know, how do we reduce these numbers year over year? How do we incentivize different departments to look at their data and say, how can we do better next year or next month? So that's something that risk is taking under evaluation. And hopefully we'll have something to encourage staff, different departments to look at their raw numbers, because it does impact our premiums, obviously, that we pay the risk pool. So we don't have an answer for you now, but it is something that as we evaluate these numbers and this data and what we pay, we have to have something out there, especially if you have reoffenders that may be having multiple accidences or incidences and things like that, that costs the county money. How do we look at that from a holistic standpoint, and how can we correct that or be better going forward?
Do you have the numbers for the state nationwide also? By analogy, if we look at unemployment numbers there, the economists will say, based on your kind of economy, you should always expect a minimum of 3.5% unemployment. Do we have something equivalent here that says of the many man hours you have, you ought to expect these number of?
I can
claims?
look through the risk pool. I can get L&I. Yeah, I can get that data for our next presentation and also reach out to the risk pool
Just
and see for counties of our size and demographics, what those numbers look like.
the reason that's important, because if we go to Scott's statement about training and all that, we want to be sure that if we're going to train someone below the target number, we're probably not putting the resource in the right place.
Yeah, and some of, you can train and teach, but there's some things that are just inevitable or that just happen. They're accidents.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll get that data and I'll present it in August.
One of the things this pie chart says, though, is that half of the claims are from people who work at the Hall of Justice. Is there an environmental connection?
The sheriff isn't, are you counting the sheriff in the
Sure.
Hall of Justice?
Well,
Yeah, that's his office is at the Hall of Justice.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just.
I mean, is that an indication? I mean, we've had a lot of discussion about environmental problems at that building.
Yeah, the sheriff's department's workers' comp claims are attributed to activities in the field.
Okay.
The Superior Court is more along the lines of exposure.
And the clerk, okay.
and the Sheriff's Department and Public Services, those are our high-risk departments. So it's what I would consider high risk, at least.
Yeah.
Moving on to liability claims, as of the beginning of May 1st, we had 11 claims, no new claims in May, closed claims 1, ending in May 10. And then tort claims, we had 4 new tort claims and litigation 6. Our data doesn't come over till the very beginning of the month. So this meeting fell on July 1st, the first day of the month. So we don't have the June data. So we recapped our May data for you. But this is data as of June, not completed as of July 1st. So it highlights that on the right side. Any questions? Okay. Moving on to safety. Injury and incident reporting, seeking the ability to collect data from PDF forms. Scott and myself have been reaching out to other departments, other counties, other industries to see is our form the best form possible? And if not, how can we make it better? So we have been doing that as well. We're currently reviewing the injury incident form to better capture data. Communication follow-up, I can tell you, myself and Scott, these last few weeks and months, just the follow-up and to make sure that we're both on the same page with who followed up with who and having some sort of digital communication so that we're not, so that we're abreast of who's communicated with who and making sure that our follow-up is adequate and accurate as well. Updating the intranet for site of easy to locate. We are working on the policy updates to send out policy reminders for injury incident reporting. God bless you. Reporting for all departments and then training departments on the new updated form once the updates have been completed so that we're all completing the form in its entirety because that's what helps Scott and myself in our department to make sure we're reporting accurate information. AED, we just received our new digital AED machine. It actually talks to you. It's pretty cool. Purchased for the second floor of the administration building, the AED machine. We are actively seeking team floor captains and or trained staff for all departments who can administer the AED machines. And our vision is that inside the AED machine, they'll be identified when you open the machine who the team captain is. So you know who to reach out to if you need to administer the AED machine. So that's on our plan. Evacuation policy and maps. We're reviewing the evacuation policy for updates, and we're seeking assistance from vendors for maps of all Cowlitz County buildings. We found that a lot of our maps that we do have are outdated. They're not digitized as well. So we're trying to get everything in a digital format so that should we do remodeling or updates, they're easily converted and we're up to speed and we're accurate with our evacuation plan. Any questions?
I might ask Scott to maybe go over a little bit because there was discussion on it at the safety meeting on Thursday on Narcan and how we're using that because the shops had some questions on
Yeah,
that. So just so the commissioners are aware.
We actually have a slide for that too. I don't
Oh,
know
you
if
do?
it's-
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
we'll speak
I'm
on
just
it.
ahead of the game. All right.
We'll parking lot that for a sec. We'll come back to that. Reducing slips and falls. Board's always asking you, how do we reduce this? How can we reduce the numbers? And so we just put some things on here, regular maintenance, ensuring walkways are clear of obstacles like branches and debris. I know when I'm walking in, from the parking lot, I'm always looking at obstructions or plants or things that are overgrown that I would want to inform facilities on. Non-slip surfaces, install non-slip maps in areas prone to wet floors and ensure prompt cleaning of spills. Proper lighting. Do we need to improve lighting in the parking lot and walkways to enhance visibility? Employee training, which I think is key. Regular conducting training sessions on workplace safety, emphasizing the importance of being cautious in potentially hazardous areas. Making sure all of our signage is clear and visible to warn employees of wet floors, uneven surfaces, and other hazards. Proper footwear, encourage or provide employees with appropriate footwear that has good traction, especially for those working in areas with high slip risk or, risk areas. Incident reporting, implement a system for properly reporting and addressing potential hazards observed to resolve before slips and falls. Routine inspection, we've been out and about, and as we see things, we follow the proper protocol to let facilities know, but also conduct regular training for safety inspections to identify and mitigate risks. Any questions?
I
Okay.
saw, you're probably gonna hate it. You said, Commissioner Dahl, don't go to any more of those meetings. the road department or public works over there, they have a sheet they fill out is it a monthly sheet, a safety inspection thing? Do we have that in all of our buildings, I wonder?
We don't, no.
Okay.
That's something that we really want to push
To strive
towards.
for?
Yeah.
Because they look on a regular basis and note any deficiencies and get it to facilities, which I think is probably a good idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. They
I believe
used to,
it's in their calendar and they do it on the same day every month and then they forward it to their supervisors and then we're apprised if there's a risk out there.
Yeah, okay.
Training. We've added NeoGov slips, trips, and falls to assist with accident prevention. So everyone should have that training in their queue. Kathy and I are attending the WCRP, our risk pool conference in July up in Shelton, Washington. So we'll be bringing back best practices and all of that training. And then myself and Scott, we're both working on our risk certification. So for mine, it's a little bit more intense. It's about a 2-year. They say allow 2 years to complete, but my goal is to complete in 1 year. We'll knock on wood. We'll see how that goes. And then Commissioner Dahl, to answer your question about the Narcan rollout and training, we completed this for the Office of Administration. And then I know Scott was filling me in about the safety meeting. And so I reached out to our attorney to ask, what's the legal obligation of us as employees? Should we administer this? And what I was informed is, as long as all staff have completed the Narcan training and it's for a life-saving situation, our Cowlitz staff member is protected. So basically, you would call 911, administer Narcan in those life-saving situations, and then once paramedics or fire, you'd turn over the situation to them. So we are protected. So we'll be rolling this out through other departments. We wanted to first do it by department or by building. Obviously, our road crew, they're out there in the public and seeing Narcan situations. And so I know that they had a lot of questions at the meeting. So Scott, I'll let you kind of piggyback on that.
yeah, we'll have to add just a snippet of information in the Narcan training to make sure that we're covered. But once that's done, we can submit that. And
Yep. We're not forcing anybody to do it, right?
no,
No,
I think the road crew people, they weren't so much that they were going to come across somebody and they would have to do it. They were worried about themselves getting into something and maybe grabbing a needle or doing just the situations they get into, and for their own protection is what their concern was.
yeah, and that was made very clear in that meeting.
Yeah.
and at the last meeting that I went to that you're speaking of, I highly encourage, when in doubt, just call 911. If you're unsure of a situation, or if you're unsure if someone's wanting it to be administered, if you have someone that's combative, call 911. Because you don't want to put yourself or the county in a situation that makes you feel unsafe. So that was my recommendation. Let the experts handle those intense situations. Did I answer your question, Commissioner Dahl? Okay, we're ready to move on. Any questions before we move on? Okay. So our security contract, Phoenix Security Scope of Work, we are working on that as we speak for the RFP, should be completed by the end of this month and posted for public viewing. Looking to add outdoor surveillance at the museum on Fridays and Saturdays, but our security firm that we have right now declined to provide Saturday services. It does require a minimum of 4 hours, and really all we need is someone to drive by the museum, make sure there's no one that shouldn't be there on premise. And so we'll be adding that into the RFP request for scope of work. This initiative will also include that initiative in the RFP for the 2025 contract. Any questions?
Yeah, question. I would imagine that if you called KPD and said, would you mind putting on your schedule someone to come in Saturday morning and just do a quick inspection there, I think they would, I assume they would agree, because they have to do their patrolling anyhow.
We will request that. I think what's hard is making sure it's done on a regular basis, timely before the museum opens, to make sure that there's no riffraff, anything like that there, but we'll certainly request that. It's something that we talked about and we discussed when we were reviewing the RFP.
Did you hear that? No riffraff or commissioners breaking into the building?
Right?
Commissioners?
I heard someone broke into it. I can't remember who though.
Must have been somebody.
Yeah. Now, don't we have Phoenix Security? We use them at the courthouse now, and I think we've synced those contracts. Have we?
Yeah, part of this RFP is to make them synced up. They both expire December 31st of 2024. And so the intent is working with the sheriff's department because they oversee the contract at
Hall of Justice.
Hall of Justice. Also, they provide security at the jail entryway. So we're hoping to have one contract so they're all synced up. But right now they're synced up to expire December 31st.
And we collaborated with the sheriff department prior to this meeting to make sure that the scope of work and RFP aligned with both of our needs. Or I should say all of our needs. Yeah. Any questions?
Just out of curiosity, when we send out an RFP, are there more agencies than just Phoenix Security? There is, okay.
Yeah, so I think the last time when they did the RFP for Hall of Justice, they got 5 to 6 responders.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on. So in June, the commissioners had asked, who is our risk pool? So we are showing you on this map. All of the green counties are part of the WCRP risk pool. So that clearly identifies we are the greater portion of the state. We all contribute and are part of the risk pool, which is nice for all of us in our department. We can reach out to another risk pool staff member. We can also pose questions amongst the risk pool. I know myself, as we've been going through a lot of questions and answers with our Hall of Justice, I've highly leaned on our risk pool for advice, suggestions. So it's really nice. The gray shaded are individually insured, and then the white is another risk pool, an outside risk pool. Any questions?
Yeah, when I see data like this, I always ask why. And it's pretty clear that the large counties have the resources, but the smaller counties seem not to be in any category. How do they manage?
Are you speaking like Skamania, Wahkiakum? So the other counties in white belong to a separate risk pool. It's just a smaller risk
Separate
pool.
risk pool.
Mhm. Correct. But I believe some that were a part of the WCRP risk pool and left to the other risk pool may have wished that they would have stayed. I don't 100% know that, but I've heard.
Yeah, I think it's useful to know the reasoning there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with cost. So
I
it's
mean,
like when
I-
you change insurance companies, you get a better deal that first year. And then year 2, you're shocked. So there
Yeah,
could be a
we're
number of
familiar with-
reasons.
We're familiar with those kind of games. What I don't know is how long they've been on their own, how has it worked out,
Yeah.
all of that.
Some of the larger counties I know have been on their own for quite a while. I think they have many more resources.
I know since my time on the commission, Clark County was dismissed from the pool because of how they handled some of the claims. That was a controversy that
So-
occurred.
So they
with
were almost
Wausau.
kind of pushed to go on their own?
Well, there were some legal problems and they violated some of the understandings, at least from Wausau's perspective on that. The thing that's interesting to me is that the large counties are on their own. Obviously, there's economies of scale, except the pool also includes Spokane and Thurston County, who are big counties. And it's kind of interesting. Yakima is kind of
Okay.
approaching that as well. So I think that the counties have to make an individual decision. The extra expenses that go to the risk pool's overhead,
Mhm.
you know, can be a factor if they think they're getting a fairer deal. The larger the county, the greater the risk. And
Absolutely.
so,
Doug has something, I think, to add to this. Go ahead, Doug.
Good morning, gentlemen. The smaller counties are members of the Washington County's risk group. It used to be, I think, the Washington County's Rural Insurance Group.
Having trouble hearing.
Sure, can you hear me now?
You're very faint. You want to restate that?
How about now?
There you go.
Much
Good.
better.
Yeah, I apologize. Every time I switch Zoom to Microsoft, everything, I have to keep redoing my, okay, back at the ranch. The smaller counties are part of the Washington County's risk group, which used to be, I think, the Washington County's Rural Insurance Group. The two counties I would note is Kitsap and Clark, which used to be members of the Washington County's risk pool. With Kitsap, a number of years ago, there was discussion that between Kitsap and the pool members as to Kitsap's approach to submitting cases, sometimes belatedly, to the pool, and I think there was an understanding that they should part their ways. Similarly, with Clark, there was a scenario where Clark had assigned their rights to challenge the risk pool's denial to a third-party claimant, and despite Clark's request that maybe they erred and they want to stay in, again, the pool decided, because we are a pool of counties, that pool our interest and our funds, we suggested Clark should look elsewhere for representation. So what you really have are, with the exception of Snohomish, King, and Pierce, you have virtually all the counties are in pools, or at one time were in pools and have exited for reasons that they weren't simply compatible with the other counties in our particular insurance pool.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Yeah, it's, and I'll just leave it at that. It's now we're getting into policy, but I just thought I'd bring you up to date that virtually all counties that want to be in insurance pools are probably in insurance pools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions before we move on? Okay. So just, we spoke about this a little bit between Scott and Kathy about our premiums. So if you look at the next slide, it will show our liability, what our deductible is for liability, property, and crime. Outlines it right there as 100,000, 500,000. I'm sorry, 100,000, a million, 5 million, 25 million.
No, 100,000.
100,000, 5,000, 25,000, sorry. And then year over year has our numbers for 23 and 2024. And that's for risk pool Cowlitz County.
So I noticed you didn't include the summation under the years. Is that too scary a number? So it's like 2.5 million in 24, and I don't.
Versus 1.7.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So state your question, restate your question, sorry.
The summation.
Oh,
Yeah, we didn't put the summation on the slide,
No.
but you're correct.
Yeah, I would think, you know, part of the
Okay.
value of slides is to help us see things, and if, enough said.
Gotcha, we can add that. And I saved the best for last, HOJ. Our Hall of Justice, obviously, you guys have been receiving the information in regards to what's been going on at that building. So we just wanted to give you some of the data in regards to total number of incidences that were completed were 40. Total number of staff injuries, 12, which consisted of things like runny nose, cough, headache, metal taste in their mouth, sore throat, tightness in chest, skin, rash, lightheadedness. Total number of medical treatment workers comp or SAFE, SIF numbers were 3. 100% of staff have all returned as of this morning. We confirmed that. Originally, there were 6 that had relocated to a different building, and then all but 5 relocated. And then today, the last one relocated back to their original workplace. June 13th, we completed a second round of air quality testing where there were 24 samplings, and the results were shared with all of the Hall of Justice staff on Wednesday, the 26th. We've got remediation plans underway. I didn't want to share those because we haven't quite identified dates and times that those will all take place, but with the second round of samplings and testing, there were some areas of concerns, but those are being addressed by facilities. Any questions?
Thank you.
I think Mike covered some of the things they were looking at the last time.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Oh, I was just telling Mike covered a couple
Oh,
of things they were looking at.
Yes,
For example, rain gutters that go in and out of the buildings.
yeah.
Those type of things. Yeah.
And if you want, at my next month's presentation, I can identify all of the remediation things that took place from our air quality tests. I can follow up with you guys on that as well.
I might go back to the costs real quick. I think when you were looking at this, Cassidy, didn't we look at different deductibles to see if it made any kind of difference? I don't think it made
Right,
much
right.
difference at all.
We had the ability to change our deductible. There are a few of the counties that on the liability side had that deductible at like 250,000. And I looked at it to determine, what would be the savings? And it wasn't significant,
Wasn't it? Yeah.
right, to take on that additional risk.
I just mentioned that, so anybody's paying attention, we are looking at ways to bring this down, and
Right.
we have looked at a couple of those.
And I think, in our training programs and things like that, we're sending out training information. A lot of that's geared towards helping you reduce risk, helping to address and mitigate certain types of risk. So.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You good to head right into agenda review?
I think
We'll head right into agenda review, building and planning. Oh, Susan, you're back.
Morning, Commissioners. Wayne Nelson, Planning Manager. Tracy, our Director's on a well-deserved break right now, so it'll be me today. So on your consent agenda for tomorrow is for Chairman Dahl's signature or consideration for signature is a contract for research and documentation for Grange Hall eligibility for the local historic preservation register. This work is funded by a grant from the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, or DAP. The amount's $10,000, both the contract and the grant, so it's fully funded. For the request for proposals, we sent that out and we had 3 qualified responses. In reviewing the responses, one couldn't meet the time frame that was allocated. They had prior obligations, so they were looking for an extension to next year. The second, it was likely that there was going to be change orders forthcoming. That was recognized in the wording of the proposal. And the third one appears to be on time and on budget. So the scope of work, the qualifications, those were all equitable amongst all 3. And so we went with the one that could meet the parameters of the funding available and the timeframe. So the scope of the work really is within the county. There's 6 Granges. 4 of them are actually within the county. 2 are within the cities. There's the Catlin Grange, Rose Valley Grange, Silver Lake Grange, and Pleasant Hill. And then within the cities, there's the Castle Rock Grange and also Sunnyside within the city of Woodland. And so the contract before I used the county standard format. It's for chairman's signature. And so just wanted to provide the opportunity for any questions. No questions.
So this is a study to see what would be the expenses. It's not the painting.
No, it's a study for eligibility to go on the local register.
Okay.
And so they'll be researching the Granges, the formation. They'll be providing the documentation necessary to the state to get them on the register. As far as any associated work, if there's any remediation or improvements, this is strictly a study. We are actually, speaking of that, we are also pursuing a grant for next year to fund plaques for each of the buildings. And so, and it'll be in similar scope and size as far as the dollar amount, but no physical improvements are a part of this.
Okay. That it?
That's it,
Okay.
unless there's questions.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you.
Health and Human Services is,
Gina was on.
there she
is.
is.
Good
Hi,
morning.
good morning. Gina James, Health and Human Services. Tomorrow on the agenda, we have 2 contract amendments. I mentioned these last week. So this is for the criminal justice treatment account funds that we received from the state. The state contract was a 2-year contract. Our provider contracts that we have on the agenda with Columbia Wellness and Cowlitz Family Health Center, we had done these originally for 1 year. So we are coming back with an amendment to include the 2nd year of funding with these providers for their CJTA services. It's they're primarily serving individuals who are participating in drug court. The purpose of CJTA is to kind of fill in that gap to help them complete the requirements of their therapeutic court program. So it helps to cover some treatment costs to complete their treatment programs. There's the majority of this funding is used to support the UAs and outpatient treatment episodes so that they can complete their programs. Is there any questions?
That's good.
I don't, not seeing any.
Okay, I will see you tomorrow.
All right, Gina, thank you. Public Works.
Morning, Commissioners. Sean Rui, Finance Manager, Public Works. Today before you, or tomorrow's agenda, we have number 2 on.
So before you start, Sean, did I see you in the newspaper?
I haven't read the article yet.
Front page.
Front page, that's what I thought.
Was it a good photo?
Oh, you look awesome.
Well, thank you.
Well, the background was the landfill, so accurate photo.
So on the consent agenda tomorrow, we have a contract extension with ALS. They do our laboratory testing for water, stormwater, leachate, sewer. Am I missing any there, Susan?
No, that's it.
So the original contract was for 2 years. It had 2 additional years built into it. And so we're just exercising our right on the second one and having some updated rates. The last rates were from 2022.
So when you say there's no increase in the original contract amount, you mean the cap?
Correct.
But you will be paying a little more along the way.
We will, yeah. So we, on an annual basis, between $50,000 to $70,000 we pay across the entire contract.
Okay.
And then I'm Susan Eugenis, County Engineer. On the motion items, we have a local agency consultant agreement with Exeltech for the Rose Valley Road culvert replacement. This is at milepost 7.74. This is out Rose Valley Road in the 2021 storm event. The end of this culvert was blown off and the roadway embankment was damaged, including the guardrail hanging. We did a temporary fix at that time with the understanding from the permitting agencies that we would come back and replace the culvert when we could get around to it. This is funded with Federal Highways ER money as the final solution. We did our normal RFQ process, went through, rated their qualifications, held interviews, and picked Exeltech to be our consultant, and we've been negotiating the price since April.
All right, so how do you know it's milepost 7.74? How do you measure it?
So on the public works vehicles, we have what are called the DMIs, digital measuring instruments installed in the vehicle. And they start at milepost 0. And as they drive along, it takes the miles. And that is the location that we have this culvert marked at.
And it's plus or minus what?
Hundreds.
Hundreds?
Yeah, because it's miles. So I'd say 500s plus or minus.
Okay. And the calibration is done?
I believe they calibrate them. It depends on which vehicle. The road supervisors, I believe, calibrate theirs monthly. The office staff were not as diligent, and I couldn't tell you when
Okay.
how frequently
They
we did
use
it.
rotation of the wheel? Or how do they,
So they're off of the drive line,
I beg your pardon?
drive line rotations. So yes, it's measured at the wheelbase on the drivetrain, but it's measured off of the drive line itself, rotations of the drive line.
Ah, that's what you meant, the drive line. I could picture somebody following the line on the road and I wasn't sure.
We get one of those orange spray cans.
So that in itself means it's gonna be vehicle dependent.
Yes, and I know over the years, we have multiple vehicles going out there. So this is probably the average milepost. If you get to that milepost, you'll be able to find it. It's a big concrete culvert. You can't miss it.
Yeah, we always have these arguments about accuracy and precision.
And then you have to check, does your 0.0 start in the middle of the intersection or does it start at the curb return?
Yeah, I ignore that on straight line roads. Well, you did want questions.
I did.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Finance. we went over this pretty well last week. I just saw from
Yes.
an email, you had a couple changes to it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. So on last Wednesday, after salmon presentation, which was interesting for someone who's new to Washington, for me, I went over the budget amendment that we have for 2024. The only things that have now been updated after Wednesday were the coroner had received an updated final quote for that piece of equipment that was being funded from a grant. So their equipment purchase went from $79,500 to $82,300. The treasurer's office, after discussion with the commissioners, we removed the treasurer's request for the general fund for the software for debt book subscription software. And we are now placing it into an IT expense. And so we've changed the IT expenses request for that. And then we've also, because we're going to work on combining the contract for the auditor has and the contract for the bonds, the module for the bonds with debt book, then both of those items will now be coming out of the IT budget, since they're for the benefit of the entire county. So that's the only changes that I've made since I discussed with you the budget amendment last Wednesday. And this is for a public hearing for tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's good.
I have another item for tomorrow's meeting. It's on the consent agenda, and it's the amendment for our Security Solutions Northwest contract that was previously approved. We're asking for an amendment to that contract to incorporate some additional expenses for some change orders that have been presented, which will provide additional security. And we have it in the budget because we've set aside a budget for this project. So all of the change orders will not exceed our budget, and the total contract with Security Solutions is now amended to be $240,356,000, which it was previously at $225,000.
The great majority of that was a grant from, they have a, whatever they call it.
Right, it was Administrative Office of the Courts.
Yeah.
And that was $117,000 of the contract.
The numbers you gave don't jive with the numbers on this piece of paper. It says bringing the total amount to 232. That's without sales tax, or what's the?
Well, the original proposal that I submitted in Agenda Quick, which has been now updated, Kelly was going to update that over the weekend. One of the change orders, it was a late change order that we received. It has to do with adding 3 new monitors that could be in the lobby area of the Hall of Justice. And so that's now we originally had 4 change orders. Now we have 5 change orders.
So the answer is yes, that's not the correct number on it. Okay, thank you.
Yep. The correct number is $240,356. And we should be up to date on all that change order came in the same day, like the day after I submitted the agenda item.
So Kathy, because these are capital improvements, the budget you're talking about is the capital improvement fund budget, as well as the grant.
Yes. So actually it is a capital item, but it's showing up in the Superior Court's budget, this project.
So that comes just that the additional amount comes out of our general fund rather
No.
than that.
It's actually coming
CIP?
out of two pieces. One's coming out of the capital improvements,
Okay.
facilities capital improvements fund, and another piece is coming out of IT's reserve fund.
So those will be listed as revenue transfers into Superior Court,
Yes, and they're actually on the amended budget item
like that. Okay.
as well.
I
So we have the grant that's funding 117. The Superior Court asked for additional budget capacity this 2024 for the matching. And then we have $100,000 contributed from capital improvements as well as IT for a total of about $250,000 budget.
So I think we talked about this last time, but I don't remember if we concluded anything, and that's, so, do we have have the policy written and how we're gonna use this and all of that? That's still in the works?
Yeah, that needs to still be in the works,
Yeah, it'll take some time.
right?
Okay.
Because it involves IT, facilities, and also users of the cameras are usually department heads or their delegates.
Right, and that needs to, yeah, and also the retainment policy element. of
Right,
this.
retention of the videos.
Yeah. Did I say retainment? I meant retention. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Just in general, they report that they're about 50% finished with the installation of the cabling and things like that. So they're on track to be completely finished, I think, either the first week of August or the last week of July.
Perfect.
And we have weekly meetings with them to stay on top of issues and things like that. And that's what some of these change orders were generated from, discussions as far as what would be the best security measures and improvements to the system overall.
Yeah.
So when you say you're having discussions with them, are you talking about the judges or the staff?
No, this is Security Solutions, the vendor discussions to get project updates.
Okay,
Okay, that's it.
thank you. You know if Jessica has anything today? Okay. Okay. We can recess to 11 unless you want to chat a little bit. If you've had a chance to read David's deal on the Board of Health, evidently that has a different procedure to do that.
Yeah, I see no problem with it. I mean, do just follow what David suggested.
Yeah. I didn't read through and see how long we have to have the notification out there. I guess 24 months isn't long enough, so.
Yeah, I think if anything, I mildly owe you an apology for not having trapped that first. You saw during the meeting, I was edgy about some stuff, but I should have checked the RCW first to see. It surprises me how government decides it's going to partition things into smaller and smaller groups. Oh, this is a board, but oh no, this mosquito board, that's special. And the noxious weed board, or that's special too. And by the way, this advisory board, no, that's special too. And you end up with special cases on everything. And I should have figured out or assumed that I should look into the Board of Health one. So
what I'll
so
do
you
is,
were the newbie, so you're excused.
you know, I'll look at what the minimum time is and have that, whatever the notice requirements are,
Yeah,
posted, and then we'll just go from there. See
I
what we
think
get
the
in.
posting's already gone out. Kelly? Is that right?
I'm working, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm working with David and Doug on getting the posting and the proper things according to the WAC. So
Do you have any hint for us as to a timetable?
um David is gonna get back to me on the proper notice aspect once he reviews what I've sent him.
Yeah,
So
I-
I should be hearing back today.
okay, because I think tomorrow, under just comments, I'll probably just mention that we're going to do this, but I'd like to give a time frame if David has that.
Yeah, until then, my understanding is the Board of Health prior to the last one will be the Board of Health that should have been at the last one and will be at the next one probably until we get all the milestones taken care of.
Right. Okay.
And I'm not sure how to approach this. I'll do it. It seemed like in the risk presentation, there were a lot of things there that are really at a level that probably we don't need to see. We need to see. There's a lot of backup material, and I'm happy to have that as anybody that comes up to answer things or to present something should have the backup material, but just I'm saying it took too long and I didn't get enough out of it.
Maybe pare it down just a hair to how do you want to put it? Things that we see effects of or things that we can do
Yeah, we don't.
just,
Yeah,
I don't know quite how to say that, but
yeah, it sounds like you've had the same feeling at times. I mean, that was an hour and 20 minutes. And fortunately, I guess we really didn't have anybody online. Well, anyhow, like on simple statements like evacuation policy and maps, I suspect that's a lower level detail, and certainly spending time explaining why we need them is a little bit, I won't say it.
Yeah.
And,
This is Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. Some of the slides were to answer previous questions, and so maybe we could do those. We don't have to put them in a slideshow, but we could answer them.
oh no, the previous questions one I actually appreciate
Okay.
because it's the belaboring the obvious that drives me a bit to, I try not to be obnoxious, but as Dennis will say, it's natural with Arn.
I wouldn't say
You
that.
see, it's working. Sorry.
Yeah, so maybe if we could go, if I can meet with y'all individually and make sure that we have the slides that you need. We'd like to be able to show you the slides on have a regular set of slides.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing, and some items will fall off and some will climb on. But this slide on reducing slips and falls, there's a lot of words. And I'm like, really?
Yeah, I think that was, again, trying to answer a question from the last month on what are we really doing about that particular.
Oh, that might be, but the answer is very simply then, well, we are going to have more classes on something or other.
Right.
But to, regular maintenance, ensure walkways are clear of obstacles. Really?
Well, Kathy, I did appreciate the information, the answers to the questions that we had. One of the presentation challenges with using slides is that the presenter then gives us the information and then reads it back to us. And so we don't need to be read to.
Right.
And that, I mean, that's always a struggle and you know, almost
Actually,
every
yeah.
presentation, we end up getting a lot of being read to, and that it's not necessary.
That's a
But
good
it's
point.
also,
If I
but it's
could-
also, yeah.
If I could elaborate on that particular one, that's an excellent point. You could present the slide and say, reducing slips and falls, any real questions on that?
Yeah.
No, and then move on.
Yeah, yeah.
And that takes from 10 minutes down to a minute.
Okay. Yeah. Very helpful hints.
The charts that you're preparing, the bar graphs and it is, I'm having a hard time finding out where the value is in terms of us being able to say, oh, there's the problem, or here's something that we need to be prepared at. I also understand it's a learning exercise. We're learning about each of the departments as well, but I'm used to working for boards that give financial reviews that have a summary of, you know, either a thumbs up or an up arrow or a down arrow or a red color or a green color, something like that, where there's that's the commentary. And I'm assuming that'll happen eventually once you get a base of how we process the different accounts. So.
Yeah, like for example, on the workers' compensation, we really want you to know that we are seeing, like we said, we have 16 so far as of May, as of the end of May. And so we're concerned about that trend line is changing compared to previous years. And then the concern about our obligations, our outstanding obligations from our current claims it was a good question. That's why we're trying to answer it with that chart.
And then graphs or charts like this one are really interesting, but the next level question, it's something I would have wanted sort of, it's non-obvious why the ones not in green and not in gray, white. See, I have to say that word takes me, okay. That may have useful bearing on us because when we look at the dollar amounts, we're like, $2.5 million for insurance. And a thing that's unfair about trying to judge that payment to the risk pool itself is risk pool provides a lot more than just insurance.
Correct.
And
Yeah,
that's a comment I would be sure to say, because someone like I would say, well, I can self-insure for less than 2.5 million. And you would have to come back and say, yes, but. And then I would come back to you and say, okay, what is the price of the additional services we get from the risk pool? And that'll fall into a tangible, a dollar amount, and an intangible, because I think we sense, or I feel like, okay, I have a camaraderie and trust with the risk pool that you wouldn't have with
the regular insurance.
and there's a continuity there.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's
So
nice for everybody to understand that.
Yeah, there's benefits in the risk pool. For example, all of these that are members, we have the ability to utilize some of their procedures, some of their expertise, and some of their experiences to assist us as a county in
they
operations.
provide litigation services and different
Yeah,
things too.
that's
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a well-taken point. It's more than just an insurance premium.
right.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up a different topic. The first item that we talked about today was the
MOU.
mental accommodations, competency hearings, and
Yeah,
how that is broken down. And that whole issue of people not competent, having committed a crime and then released because there was no room. And that's a pretty significant threat to public health and safety generally. And we made a decision to agree with this settlement. Is that something that we should have a press release to talk about? Because people sure know when the crimes are being committed, but what's the resolution? And I don't know if we have anybody that we can assign that to, public information officer, or if it's significant enough.
One of the things, yeah, please.
no, I was just gonna say, I don't have a problem with it. I'd probably wait until I know that we've been cleared to sign and everything. Once it's been signed and enacted that the state's saying,
Agreed, yeah, the sad thing is we, the public and we ourselves are inundated with information and there's not a waiting factor in on it. This is a big deal, but it's along with other things like the incidence of vaping amongst or the STDs for people that are 60 and older. That it's interesting, and but it doesn't necessarily inform the public of anything they should be aware of in particular. So I'm just saying, if we could make our announcements very focused and clear and narrow it down from the obvious to this stuff isn't obvious at all.
No, no.
I know,
Do we
obviously
have,
one
do we have a
person-
public information officer that you know of?
well, it makes me wonder, Dennis, if, since Wasack kind of ran with this, if they probably won't have a press release that
Yeah,
could just be, we could just extend down to the different counties. I mean, that, I'm not positive on that, but I'm thinking that might be.
speaking of Wasack, I took a chance again at the Kelso Longview Chamber newsletter. It was my turn for July. You're not, have you seen it?
I haven't seen
Okay. I'm alive still, so not too many people have seen it.
it. Okay, can we let's take a 5-minute recess and then we'll head in with Jessica. Okay, back from recess. Human Resources, Jessica.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I have one request from OFM requesting to fill the finance manager position. The current employee has sadly put in her 2 weeks notice. So looking to fill the finance manager position.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And then the only other item I have today is an executive session for collective bargaining.
Estimated
Let's start with 10.
10, okay. So we will adjourn to executive session, collective bargaining, 10 minutes. Okay.
board is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 11:20 a.m. The board is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 11:20 a.m. The board is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 11:26 a.m. The board is starting an executive session for public performance of an employee.
Back from an executive session, no decisions were made. Anything else? See nothing else. We will adjourn. Thank you.